Welcome to Trinity Wall Street in Lower Manhattan in New York City. My guest today is Father Michael Holleran, a Roman Catholic priest, former monk in the Carthusian Contemplative Order, and a sensei in the Zen tradition. Father Michael, thank you for coming.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
As you look around, how would you describe the spiritual landscape that you see emerging?
Well, of course, there are many negative factors, fanaticism and fundamentalism in a lot of the traditions. But at the same time, and more positively, I think there's an evolving spirit of mutual contact, recognition, mutual welcome, tentative dialogue, leading to a deeper embrace, I think, of the wisdom traditions of the world. I was raised, Christian, specifically Roman Catholic, and I had a Jesuit training from high school. And I joined the Jesuits for a while after that and did my college work with them at Fordham. And that's where I first met the Jesuit who became my Zen teacher eventually. And I was already studying other religions, other traditions at that time. But I felt a strong call to a deep inner experience. And I think on the level of religious and inner experiences where the religions can most effectively meet for our time. But that's why I joined the Carthusians, living in silence and solitude in various countries for 22 years, long enough to get a taste of it. But I felt there was a certain inadequacy in the practical contemplative wisdom that was not being transmitted. It had gotten lost somewhere, and I felt there needed to be a supplement both from psychology, and I still think that's true, but also input from the techniques and the wisdom of other traditions to help us rediscover, and within Christianity, some of our own contemplative tradition, but also to profit from the perspective that another tradition can give.
What do you think you gained from that study?
Well, both an appreciation of the pearl of great price, which is, there are many pearls that are of very great price, and to explore each one on its own terms and respecting its own methods and its own worldview is hugely enriching. It shouldn't be a threat for anybody. It's almost part of being a civilized person, to do some exploration anyway of the traditions of the world. But then, as I also found, my own tradition, my own Christian tradition, was illumined by the particular perspective brought, say, for instance, by Zen or other schools of Buddhism. Because so much of our Christian tradition has been couched, just historically speaking, in Western philosophical terms, which is not Christianity itself. Well, we sometimes tend to confuse them or conflate them. If you shine a light from another tradition from the East onto it, well, what do you find about Christ? What do you find about some of the basic truths that we believe when seen from that perspective?
Is there a sort of shared narrative, spiritual narrative, that might be discoverable, that it could be a uniting force among world religions?
Well, it's hard to say on that level of concept. I certainly think that all the world religions, all the world wisdom traditions have a sense of that there's a numinous quality to life, that somehow we're all interconnected with a deeper force and with one another and with the planet and with our own selves.
What role does a sense of connection to nature play?
Well, it does, and it should. For example, in our Christian tradition, we have, St. Francis. We also have the great medieval theologians and the great fathers of the church that saw, a great, almost like a cosmic dance, and chain of being. That's a very strong tradition that has been really suppressed, if just ignored, very often in our popular Christianity. But it has also meant that we've tended to see ourselves as separate from nature, whereas our own tradition, right clearly there and elsewhere, says, no, we're part of this great cosmic dance, and we're not the leaders of it, we're the participants, and only one of the dancers, not the dance itself or the one dancer.
What might an economic life look like if it were shaped more by the world's wisdom traditions?
Well, it would be justice more for all. It would be respecting the earth. It would be, environmentally sound, because we recognize not only our bond and our responsibility, but the fact that our happiness depends, and our survival indeed depends upon our respecting our integration with nature and its own laws. not our economic profit laws, but what are the laws of nature, global warming and all that we're not respecting. But then also, what can, if people begin to realize, well, it's not by getting more and more money and 7 yachts and six vacation homes that we're going to find happiness, then the CEOs don't have to make 380 times or whatever it is what the average worker is making now. The increase of that gap is really alarming since I've been on this planet. So there's something wrong with our sense of justice and our sense of responsibility and our sense of what does make us happy. How many millions do we need?
Beyond your personal call to explore
Yeah.
other faith traditions and understand your own in light of them, do you see an emerging opportunity in our world today for faith traditions to work together in a different way?
We all have the truth. You can argue about who has more truth, but it's ridiculous because you can eat at the table and each food is nourishing. Yeah. I like what my friend Paul Knitter wrote in his book, Without Buddha, I Could Not Be Christian. He speaks about double belonging. And this idea has come up in some forms before, but I like that particular presentation of it. One can perhaps, and one perhaps should, and more have a double belonging. Have a basic tradition, or root tradition that we hold to, because we found it to be so beautiful. But that itself pushes us to, as he says, be substantially nourished by another tradition or other traditions, double, triple belonging even. And that's going to become more and more the mark, I think, of a spiritual person in our time, where you're not afraid to, and you're inspired to to be substantially nourished by another tradition that is not your original tradition, in which you remain firmly rooted. Mm-hmm.